Hello, everyone. Welcome to BraveHearts. This is Ling. In the last few days, global attention on the new wave of COVID-19 spreading worldwide has intensified. And even this morning when I woke up, I watched some videos. Even in China, people woke up and then they found out their house was locked down overnight. In front of their house, there are wild bulbs, and even their gate, their iron gate, was locked down by the local community. They call it coordinators, but they can have the power to lock down their home. And these happen not just in one place in China, in several cities. People facing very hard lockdown, just like in Wuhan city in early 2020. People feel like the nightmare came back. And also globally, of course, in United Kingdom, the case still speaking very high, and every day more than 40,000 people got confirmed positive for COVID-19. And US, the total positive case already surpassed 20 million people. And so people start to worry about how fast this new wave gonna spread out, even in the United States. Are we ready for it? Are we really ready for preparedness for the huge spike of the big wave of the COVID-19? So people start to think, maybe we can rely on the vaccine, because in United States, of course, the Pfizer's and Moderna's vaccine start to roll out already. But is the pace fast enough? And even in United Kingdom, people also worry about it, whether the vaccination pace can be fast enough to catch the wave that the virus spread. Right? In United Kingdom, by Monday, we expect the AstraZeneca's company's new vaccine will be rolled out, and it will be an adenovirus-based vaccine. And it should be rolled out on Monday, but the quantity still is a big issue, right? Because even Pfizer promised the United Kingdom government for 5 million vaccine doses by the end of the year 2020. But eventually, what they can deliver was only about 600,000. So that's almost like 1/10 of what they promised. Because the vaccine production is not an easy business, and any delay in vaccine research, of course, it can further postpone this process of delivery. And any process in the vaccine production, any adverse effects showing up, and then the authority need to pause the phase 3 trial, and it will further delay the vaccine production as well. And of course, even the emergency authorization process for approving the vaccine still takes time too. And so all these factors can contribute to the slow rollout of different vaccines. But the biggest question right now is people still worry about the mutations. Of course, we know the B.1.1.7 lineage mutants that emerge in the United Kingdom is of major concern, and people have been talking about the mutation in spike protein in this mutant. The primary mutant is N501Y, from asparagine to tyrosine mutations. But to me, one of the biggest surprises is that not enough media start to focus on the profile change in the infection targets. So previous circulating COVID-19 can infect primarily from people about 40 years old to senior people. So that's a large populations that can become an easy target, and especially senior people. So of course, from last year, people know, senior people at the permanent care homes are the high risk, right? So even for rollout vaccines, the second priority is these senior people in the permanent care home, and the first priority is the medical staff who handle the COVID cases. So that's a kind of common perception that usually, as maybe mid-age and senior people are easily affected. But if we look at the case in United Kingdom, many young people younger than 20 years, so you can say teenagers, children, they got infected, and the profile was actually quite a big dramatic change. And I think this should be a major alarm, because it implies several potential that the virus mutation has caused a significant change. So first, people think about the virus may mutated to a level that it can enhance transmissibility, right? So these kind of first suspicion, and we read a report from London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. From that report, we know the transmissibility might be increased to 56% higher than previous circulating virus strains. So that's one clue. But to me, actually, one of the major concerns that even the science community haven't really fully think about this potential is about co-receptor issues. Why do I talk about co-receptors? Because most people only talk about the spike protein interaction with the ACE2 receptor. And the ACE2 receptor is the primary receptor that this virus can bind to, and ACE2 receptor expressed on many of the epithelial surface in many different organs. So primarily people worry about the interaction between the spike protein and ACE2 receptor. But in the virology field, people care about another thing, is a co-receptor. So for the virus to enter the cell, it needed another co-receptor to facilitate the entry. And the co-receptor is temperase serine protease on the cell surface. So these co-receptors' role is not fully understood, but it's found to be needed to facilitate efficient virus entry into target cells. Let me show you a picture. So let me show you this picture. So in here, you see different tissues and different organs, from nasal surface, tracheal epithelial cells, or esophageal epithelial cell, or bronchial epithelial cell. So different epithelial cell, and they express different type of these co-receptors. So the temperase, not just one type. So most of the times, the report talk about temperase 2. But we can also see temperase 1, temperase 11D. These are also potential efficient co-receptors besides the ACE2. So this is very, very important issue. We need to understand viruses are very smart. Okay, so virus can use different co-receptor to help them enter different target cells, because different target cells express these different co-receptor to different levels, and the efficiency for virus to target these different cells can be dramatically different. And so the virus understand the environment is so complicated, right? The target cells environment is so complicated, they can adapt to different strategies, right? So in this way, virus need to adapt to different target cell, different organs, different tissues. And we know even a lot of the COVID-19 patients, they lost their sense of smell. And this is not a small case number. A lot of the COVID-19 people lost their sense of smell. And one of the important reasons underlying this symptom is because their olfactory supporting cells was infected with COVID-19. But very interesting, the neurons was not infected. The olfactory neuron cell was not infected. And that's because the neuron cells does not express the ACE2. But on the surface of these olfactory supporting cells, it expresses the ACE2 as well as a co-receptor. And so your sense and relies on both function of the neuron cell, the olfactory neuron cell, as well as the olfactory supporting cells. So need these two things to work together in order to have a normal sense of smell. So as long as one part is not functional, then you will lose sense of smell. So I give this illustration, just want to highlight, it's very important to understand. It's for different target cells, it can be a very complicated issue, and the receptor and co-receptor need to work together as well to facilitate the virus entry. And another example I want to give you is about HIV, because this is for HIV is a lot more research has been conducted on HIV, and that has been more than from 1980s to right now about 40 years, right? So people understand HIV a lot more in depth than the COVID-19. And just give the example for the HIV. You can see HIV not only use the primary receptor CD4, and it also use co-receptor, and depends on the cell type. For some cell line, it can use CXCR4, and for some, it can use CCR5. So in this picture, even though it illustrates like one cell express both of them, but for virus, it can develop different affinities for different co-receptors. And so you can have HIV mutants that favors CD4 and CXCR4, and for certain mutants, it can favor CD4 plus another co-receptor, that's CCR5. And especially for people who develop a chronic HIV infection, the virus primarily use CCR5 as co-receptor. So this is one example. The viruses are so smart to adapting to your immune systems, to different target cells. They use different co-receptor to facilitate different efficiency of entry into cells. So virus is very smart. I just keep emphasizing this one. So when the virus can use different co-receptor during the different infection periods, we understand virus try to adapt the immune system. They even try to break through the immune system, right? So for COVID-19, for the SARS-CoV-2, it could happen in a similar way. The virus used different co-receptor. We know the tempus, right? Tempus 1 to 11D. The virus can develop different affinities for different co-receptor. And so when the virus now, the mutants, the B.1.1.7, can infect younger generation, we cannot just worry that the virus only enhance its transmissibility. We should also worry the virus may be mutate to adapt to use different co-receptor or even different affinities to bind to different co-receptor. That would change virus infection profile in terms of target cells. So I think this is one important issue I want to mention. And another aspect that really worry me is about the vaccine's efficacy issues. So of course, people right now simply hope the vaccine rollout can be fast enough. People start to think, oh, we are like a race with the virus. The virus keep mutation, and then we need to roll out more vaccines so that we can be outpaced as the virus mutated. But is the story so simple? Because the virus can develop different strategies, maybe compromise your vaccine's efficacy. So one of the mechanisms, in the last year, at the beginning, a lot of the scientists definitely worry about this, and that's antibody-dependent enhancement effects. But in later last year, later 2020, many scientists didn't find enough evidence to support the antibody-dependent enhancement effect. So the worry about that effect kind of gradually, you can say not totally fade out, but gradually reduced. And people nowadays, even in the vaccine industry, don't talk about it too much. But the threat of antibody-dependent enhancements to vaccine production still exists. So I wanted to highlight this again in this program, because the antibody-dependent enhancement effect is actually one of the primary reasons that cause some of vaccinated personnel showing more severe symptoms for RNA virus. This is one of the major mechanisms. So we still cannot forget about this. And many people, they develop acute respiratory distress syndrome after they've been infected by RNA virus, whether it's dengue virus or yellow fever virus or SARS or MERS or the SARS-CoV-2. they will develop these acute respiratory distress symptoms due to ADE, antibody-dependent enhancement. And there are different mechanisms for developing ADE. Let me see if I can show you a picture. Let me see. Okay, let me first show you let's focus on these. All right. So to talk about the mechanism for ADE, this diagram illustrates a simple way to understand it. And so basically, when the virus infects human body, your immune system will develop a lot of antibodies against the virus, and many of them are neutralizing antibody, or you can say the real effective antibodies, because a lot of antibody may not be able to neutralize virus infection. So those antibody, you can say it's useless in terms of blocking the virus, but those antibody may even bring some negative effects too. But for neutralizing antibody, it can form like aggregation on the virus. It can trigger the aggregation of virus particle because, on one virus surface, it can bind to several antibodies, and when many antibodies bring different virus together, it can form aggregation, and that can trigger the virus being internalized by macrophages, and then further destroy those virus. And so these are the neutralization functions. But if the antibodies level is not optimal, you can say that even the neutralizing antibody level is suboptimal. So not enough antibody to bind to a virus particle. So on the right side of the diagram, you can see that antibody can facilitate the virus enter into the cells. So actually it enhances the virus infectivity. So this is antibody-dependent enhancement. So this is one mechanism. And there are other mechanisms too. And let me show you. Let me see if I can show you another person. So there are other mechanisms too, and it can involve complements. So not just the antibody, and it can also involve complements. Complements can also trigger, you can say, hyper inflammations or cytokine storm. So not just the Fc receptor. So the previous diagram I show you is antibody triggered one. So, but overall, ADE, from the term, it talks about antibody-dependent enhancement, but to cause similar hyperinflammation and cytokine storm, and complements can also trigger similar overreactions in your immune system against intruders or invaders of the virus into your system. So in this way, there are different mechanisms that your immune system can be overreact and cause damage to your own internal organs. So these are the dangerous situation for antibody-dependent enhancement. And we know for SARS, for MERS, patients develop antibody-dependent enhancement, the ADE effects. So we cannot rule out this right now. And so this is still a big risk for vaccination, because if the vaccination being rolled out in a large scale, in one aspect, you are kind of priming people being infected by the virus, right? So a lot of people may not be exposed to the virus, but because of vaccination, you're exposed to certain part of the virus antigen. So you are kind of priming your immune system to recognize the virus. Of course, it's designed for a good purpose so that your body can develop antibody to react to this virus. But if the antibody reaction is not strong enough, if you don't have a persistent antibody level in your body, then in your body, you only have a low level of antibody there. And then when it comes into the challenge of real virus, especially when it's a mutant virus, then you're actually facing a bigger risk, because those suboptimal level of antibody may trigger the mutant virus bind to the cells or infect the cells more efficiently. So that's even more scary, right? So because if people don't have the vaccination, when they first time come across the mutant virus, their systems can respond to this virus normally, but now they have a weak antibody to facilitate the virus infection, so it can make the symptom even worse. And so that's it's not just like a very, very rare chances, because you need to think about these situations happen to many other RNA virus. And it's always more complicated when you look into deeper virologies. And if you look at more examples on previous vaccine developments, why so many RNA virus vaccine failed? It's not just because people study different virus and they don't have a good luck to find a vaccine. And this time, with so many efforts on COVID-19, we suddenly have a huge luck in developing a very effective vaccine. I don't think the story is that simple. So right now, for all the vaccine that has rolled out, for example, Pfizer, Moderna's, and those vaccine products only about 3 to 4 months into the phase 3 trials. And for vaccine product, those inactivated vaccine product made by Chinese companies, Sinovac, Sinopharms, those a little bit longer, but still just about 5 months. And the pace that is rolled out is not fast enough, we mentioned, but I think more concerning is about the short period of time into the phase 3 trial, because we don't know about whether the antibody can be persistent enough to protect people. I saw a report that Chinese company mentioned their vaccines can induce antibodies that lasting about 6 months. And those numbers probably related to the following up the phase 1, phase 2 patients. The problem is that for the Chinese vaccinations process is very political driven, and the Chinese company, the Sinovac, Sinopharm, or the Wuhan vaccine production company, they did not reveal the medical report together with these claims, because for Chinese government, it's a lot of things become state secrets probably, and they are not doing this medical report. At least a preliminary medical report need to be published at the same time to make these such claims. So that's a problem with these kind of super fast rollout of vaccines. In Chinese government, they rolled out large scale of vaccination to many of the state-owned enterprise employees as early as June and July, when the phase 3 trial just started. So many of these people don't know what kind of risk they face, and they were ordered to be vaccinated. So more people actually were put into the danger or huge risk to be suffering from maybe any side effect or severe side effects from the vaccinations, and we don't know. And of course, we don't know whether this vaccine can induce any ADE, antibody-dependent enhancement, or other consequence. And so, right now, I think the whole world we're facing a huge challenge. The virus mutates fast, and already critical mutants have emerged, not only in the United Kingdom, in South Africa as well, and in China probably as well. And at the same time, you need to worry about whether the virus has mutated to adapt different co-receptors more efficiently. And then we need to also worry that the vaccines may not be able to protect people against the new mutants challenge. So many things combined together, we need to understand. Right now, it's not just a time bomb in terms of mutation. The time bomb kind of has already been triggered at being initiated. So it's the tickling time bomb. We are in this kind of stage right now. and the whole world really need to be very vigilant in terms of protection, in terms of dealing with huge waves of virus spreading, as well maybe even potential more severe disease to different age groups. So anyway, this is my first program in the new year 2021, but this program is not a very encouraging one, right? Many people hope the new year brings some new hope, but my first program is about the damn virus, right? But I think it's better to warn people early. So anyway, I thank you for everyone watching today's program, and hope you could have a good start for the new year. Start by doing good preparation for a big wave of the virus. Thank you for watching BraveHearts. This is Xiangling. We'll see you next time.